2.5 minutes of hunting under pressure on one breath. Perhaps the idea of humans existing as marine mammals is not so far-fetched after all.
When scientists finally got permission to analyze the DNA of an isolated tribe living on boats off the coast of Southeast Asia, they expected interesting data. What they got broke every rule in evolutionary biology. The Moken people carried a genetic mutation that should take millions of years to develop. It had appeared in roughly 1,000. Their spleens were 50% larger than any human population ever recorded, a trait found in seals and dolphins, not people.
The research strongly suggests that there is a genetic component to this spleen enlargement, and it also shows, whether it's high-altitude living or the deep-diving life, humans have adapted to low-oxygen environments.
When geneticist Melissa Ilardo from the University of Copenhagen tried to publish these findings, one peer reviewer refused to approve the paper. He was convinced the data had to be wrong. It wasn't. And the Moken were just the beginning. Hidden across the planet, 4 isolated tribes carry DNA mutations so impossible, they're forcing scientists to rewrite everything they thought they knew about human evolution. The tribe that became marine mammals. Off the coast of Thailand and Burma, the Moken people have lived, entirely on water for over 1,000 years. No permanent homeland, no connection to modern civilization. They dwell on wooden boats called kabang, free diving for food without any equipment whatsoever. They eat from the ocean, sleep on it, raise their children on it. Generation after generation, completely isolated from the modern world. Here's the catch. Moken children can hold their breath underwater for up to 4 minutes. The average human manages 30 to 90 seconds, maximum. Professional free divers train for years to reach those numbers. Moken 8-year-olds do it casually while collecting dinner from the ocean floor. For decades, scientists dismissed this as practice. Training passed from parent to child. Cultural technique refined over centuries. Nothing more than learned behavior. It's not that simple, though. In 1999, Swedish vision researcher Anna Gislen from Lund University traveled to Thailand to study the Moken. She'd heard stories about their underwater abilities, assumed they were exaggerated, folklore passed down through generations, tourist myths. What she witnessed made her question everything she knew about human biology. Whenever the tides came in, Moken children dove down and collected food from depths Gislen couldn't even see clearly, eyes wide open. No goggles, no squinting, no discomfort whatsoever. They picked up clams and sea cucumbers like shopping at a grocery store in broad daylight. When Gislen measured their underwater visual acuity, she stopped mid-test and recalibrated her equipment. Something had to be wrong. The Moken children's pupils were constricting to a degree never recorded in medical literature. Human pupils aren't supposed to squeeze down that small. She called her colleagues at the university. They told her to check her methodology. She had, multiple times. These children could see twice as clearly underwater as European children the same age. Their eyes were physically doing something human. Eyes aren't supposed to do. And get this, that wasn't even the discovery that shook the scientific community. When Ilardo finally analyzed the Moken genetic data in 2018, the real shock hit. The spleen finding, 50% larger than neighboring populations. Think about what that actually means. The spleen stores oxygenated red blood cells and releases them during oxygen deprivation. A larger spleen means more oxygen reserves, longer dive times, better survival underwater. Their bodies had genetically adapted to underwater life in ways that mirror marine mammals. Not humans, marine mammals. Ilardo found a specific variant in the PDE10A gene that correlates directly with spleen size. This mutation exists in the Moken at rates found nowhere else on Earth. In roughly 1,000 years, maybe less, this tribe's DNA rewrote itself to turn them into something closer to seals than typical humans. Evolution isn't supposed to work that fast. Every textbook says so. When her paper finally appeared in the journal Cell, some researchers questioned whether they needed to rewrite entire chapters of evolutionary theory. Others stayed silent. The implications were too disturbing to discuss openly. But here's where it gets disturbing. The Moken weren't alone. And what researchers found next made enlarged spleens look like a warm-up. The people who don't feel pain. Deep in Tanzania, between the alkaline waters of Lake Eyasi and the dramatic cliffs of the Great Rift Valley, live the Hadza. Roughly 1,300 members remaining. one of the last true hunter-gatherer tribes in Africa. They haven't adopted agriculture, haven't built permanent settlements. They live exactly as humans lived 50,000 years ago, hunting with handmade bows and poison-tipped arrows, foraging for tubers and berries, and eating honeycombs straight from the hive, with bees still crawling inside. This is the part that keeps biologists awake at night. The Hadza raid beehives guarded by the most aggressive bee species on the planet. African bees don't sting once and fly away. They swarm, they chase, they communicate attack signals to the entire colony. They've killed grown men who stumbled too close to their nests. Yet the Hadza climb 100 feet into the forest canopy, smoke out hives with burning branches, and grab fistfuls of dripping honeycomb, while bees cover their arms, their chests, their faces. They barely flinch. Some of them smile while doing it. For decades, scientists assume mental toughness, cultural conditioning, pain tolerance built through childhood rituals and social pressure. Warriors don't show weakness, hunters don't complain. It had to be psychological, not physical. Then, geneticists got involved, and the findings terrified the research team. In 2014, researchers from University College London collected DNA samples from Hadza volunteers. The process required delicate negotiation. The Hadza don't trust outsiders any more than the Moken do. But the team was persistent. When results came back, lead researcher Melissa Ilardo had to sit down before reading the full report. The Hadza carry a variant in the SCN9A gene, the gene that controls how pain signals travel from nerve endings to the brain. This isn't subtle, this isn't marginal. Their specific mutation reduces pain signal transmission by approximately 40%. Think about what that actually means. They literally, physically, neurologically feel less pain than the rest of humanity. What would make you scream barely makes them uncomfortable. What would send you to the hospital barely slows them down. Here's the catch. That wasn't even the most disturbing finding. Further analysis revealed elevated expression of genes related to histamine regulation. When a bee stings you, your body floods the area with histamine. That's what causes the swelling, the redness, that burning sensation that doesn't stop for hours. The Hadza's immune systems process histamine differently. The inflammatory response that would leave you in agony barely registers for them. Their bodies simply don't react the same way. So here's the deal. This adaptation didn't evolve randomly. It wasn't a lucky accident. The Hadza have been hunting honey in these forests for at least 50,000 years. Generation after generation, those who could tolerate bee stings survived to have children. Those who couldn't died from anaphylaxis, succumbed to infected wounds, or gave up on one of the most calorie-dense food sources in the forest. Natural selection carved these genetic changes into their DNA with brutal patient efficiency. If you're still watching, you want the truth about human evolution. Subscribe now, the next discoveries are even more disturbing, and we're releasing follow-up content that goes deeper into what these findings mean. The research team debated for months whether to publish. The implications were unsettling. They published anyway, and then things got stranger than anyone expected. The tribe that survived the unsurvivable. In the jungles of Papua New Guinea, so deep in the wilderness that the outside world didn't know they existed until 1974, live the Corowai. Their tree houses stretch up to 140 feet into the canopy. Architectural marvels built without any metal tools whatsoever. They had zero contact with modern humans until Dutch researchers stumbled into their territory nearly 50 years ago. The Corowai didn't know the outside world existed. The outside world didn't know they existed. And their history includes something that should have killed every last one of them. The Corowai practiced ritualistic cannibalism, not often, but consistently for generations. They consumed the flesh of those they believed were possessed by evil spirits called kakua. But here's where it gets disturbing. For most populations throughout history, cannibalism came with a death sentence built in. A disease called kuru, caused by misfolded proteins called prions in human brain tissue. Kuru devastated cannibalistic tribes across the Pacific. The symptoms are horrifying: uncontrollable trembling, inability to walk or maintain balance, personality changes, dementia, death within a year of onset, no treatment, no cure, no survivors. The Corowai should have been wiped out. They weren't. When geneticists examined Corowai DNA in the early 2000s, they found something unprecedented: a protective variant in the PRNP gene. the gene that determines susceptibility to prion diseases like Kuru, Creutzfeldt, Jakob disease, and mad cow disease. This mutation exists in the Corowai at rates dramatically higher than surrounding populations who never practiced cannibalism. Their bodies had developed genetic armor against one of the most terrifying diseases known to medicine. Dr. Simon Mead from University College London, who spent years studying prion resistance in Papua New Guinea populations, called it a striking example of natural selection's power. What he didn't say publicly, what keeps researchers in this field awake at night, is what this means for our understanding of human adaptation. Evolution built a shield against a fatal neurological disease in perhaps just a few centuries. No laboratory, no genetic engineering, just pressure, death, and survival, selecting for the right mutations. The Corowai finding was unprecedented. But there's one more population whose transformation timeline is the shortest yet. Warriors built by natural selection. The Maori arrived in New Zealand roughly 700 years ago after voyaging across thousands of miles of open Pacific Ocean in wooden canoes. In that relatively short time, they became renowned as some of the most formidable warriors the British Empire ever encountered. Their traditional war dance, the haka, isn't just intimidation theater. It requires extraordinary strength, explosive coordination, physical power that left colonial soldiers genuinely afraid. Here's the catch. Maori warriors weren't just well-trained, they were genetically different. Studies from the University of Auckland found that Maori populations carry a specific allele of the ACTN3 gene at unusually high rates. This gene variant, sometimes called the sprinter gene, is associated with fast-twitch muscle fiber composition and explosive power. It appears in elite athletes worldwide, Olympic sprinters, professional football players. In the Maori, it appears at frequencies found in less than 3% of global populations. And get this, that wasn't the only finding. Additional research revealed variants in genes associated with bone density and muscle attachment efficiency. Their bodies aren't just trained differently, they're built differently at the genetic level, optimized for combat and physical performance. Dr. Stephen Stearns, an evolutionary biologist from Yale, suggested these adaptations emerged through intense selection pressure during the long canoe voyages across the Pacific and the subsequent tribal warfare that defined early Maori history. Only the strongest survived the journey. Only the strongest won the wars. Only the strongest passed on their genes. Within just 700 years, roughly 28 generations, a population transformed into something physically exceptional. That's nothing in evolutionary terms. Absolutely nothing. What this means for you. Here's what keeps geneticists staring at their ceilings at 3 in the morning. These mutations didn't take millions of years. They didn't even take hundreds of thousands. The Moken evolved marine mammal-like spleens in roughly 1,000 years. The Hadza developed pain immunity over 50,000 years. The Corowai built prion resistance in perhaps just a few centuries. The Maori became genetically optimized warriors in less than 700 years. Evolution isn't supposed to work this fast. Every biology textbook says major adaptations require vast timescales. Gradual change over millions of years. But in isolated populations under extreme environmental pressure, DNA apparently has capabilities we are only beginning to understand. Capabilities that challenge everything in the textbooks. Capabilities that some researchers don't want to discuss publicly because the implications are too unsettling. The pattern is undeniable. Extreme environment, isolation, survival pressure, and DNA responds faster than anyone thought possible. And here's the question no one in the scientific community wants to ask out loud. If isolated populations can evolve these abilities in just a few hundred years, what does that mean for the rest of us? What dormant capabilities might be locked in your DNA right now, waiting for the right conditions to activate? What impossible things might your genes already be capable of? Modern humans face different pressures now. Screen time, processed food, climate change. Artificial environments we've never encountered before. What might we become in another few hundred years? The answers might be hiding in genetic code we haven't decoded yet, in populations we haven't studied, in mutations we haven't discovered. Or maybe they're already inside you, waiting. Drop your answer in the comments. What genetic adaptation do you think humans will develop next? Some scientists believe we're already changing, already adapting to new pressures in ways we can't measure yet. The evidence is out there. We just have to look for it. Subscribe now if you want the truth about human evolution. Hit Hit the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. We're just getting started.